Hi everyone, it's Melissa, and today I am reflecting on my year of reading in 2024. I will be sharing a few stats, talking about how I did on the goals that I set for myself last January, and sharing some general thoughts of how I felt the year went in terms of reading and in terms of my channel. I have my notebook, I have the goals that I set, and I also have a few stats. Let's start with some basic stats. So in 2024, I read 44 books, which is well above the national average for reading, but is less than I've read in the previous several years. I do not really care about the quantity of books that I read, so I don't feel like bad that it's lower. I'm more concerned about the quality, and while I read some really great books this past year, I feel like the quality maybe wasn't what it could have been, but we'll get to that maybe later. Let's just stick with the stats for now. I read 44 books. I read 41% nonfiction and 59% fiction. I believe that is the most nonfiction I've ever read in terms of like the ratio. So read a ton of nonfiction this past year. My average star rating was a 3.85, which is actually kind of low considering that I DNF and I don't rate my DNFs. And if I'm not liking a book, then if I put it down, then that means there shouldn't be a whole lot of 1 and 2 star books on my list or in my reading history. So the fact that it was so low means that I read some things that weren't quite great. Now, I didn't actually read a ton of bad books. There were a couple I didn't really like, but it was mostly kind of like a middle of the road type of a year. So the breakdown of my star ratings, I gave 1 book 1 star. I gave 2 books 2 stars. I gave 11 books 3 stars, 14 books 4 stars, and 12 books 5 stars. So I still read more 4 and 5 stars than any other type of book, but the amount of 3s I read was higher than I would like. I also DNF'd 9 books. I read 7% as an ebook, 45% in print, and 45% in audio. That math does not make sense, does it? That's only 97%. I'm going to look up that stat again after I'm done recording and put the real numbers here. But safe to say, I read almost everything equally, print and audio, and then a little bit of ebook. So those are my basic stats for those of you who, like me, are nosy about everyone's reading habits and whatnot. How do I feel about this? So I already kind of touched on the fact that I don't really care that I read 44 books. It's still way more books than most people read. But I would like the quality to be a bit better. I have been focusing on reading down my unread books, which is great. I've been making great progress with that the last couple of years. And I'd like to continue doing that. But it doesn't give me a lot of opportunities to pick up like new releases that I might be really interested in at the time. So I'm still kind of navigating what to do about that. And I feel like that may contribute to why I'm not reading more 5 stars, because I would like to read more 5 stars. I just, for whatever reason, could not figure out a good routine for reading last year. I don't know if I'm just feeling a little burnt out with reading or what's going on, but that's something I'm hoping to figure out, how I can make more time for reading. Although, as I said, 44 is still a lot of books. What I'm more concerned about, like I said, is the quality, but also the fact that in terms of my time, I'm not having as much time as I would like to engage in BookTube the way I want. I still try to watch BookTube, and I still do. Sometimes I'm putting you on and listening to you while I'm like washing the dishes and things like that. So I'm still kind of watching, but I don't make a lot of time to comment, which I really should, because as a booktuber, I understand how good it feels to get comments and to get like that direct engagement. And I haven't been engaging that way the last year. I also haven't been putting out as many videos as I would like, and it's not that I'm burnt out on booktube or I've run out of ideas. I have a list of ideas that I kept moving month to month. Like, I have kind of a list of when I think I might do a different reading project or a different review or whatever, and I'd put it in a month and I wouldn't have time to do it. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it the next month. I had so many of these things that were moved from, like, no kidding, April down to December, and then still didn't get done because the only thing I would have time to do is to do like my wrap up at the end of the month. I had no time for other booktubing. So that's something that, again, I need to kind of try to carve out that time. So something I might do next year, even though it kind of pains me, but for the amount of time I have, I really have to be really choosy about what I'm reading, is I've decided not to be a judge for the BookTube Prize next year. I will definitely come back to it at some point because I love the experience. I discover books I never would have discovered. A lot of the nonfiction, I think 4 out of the 5 top nonfiction I read, which that video will be coming out shortly. I filmed it today. 4 of them I read because of the BookTube Prize. So I love the experience, but it is like obligated reading. It's something that is prescribed that I have to finish by a certain date. And while I discover many great books that way, there are also books that I don't like so much. And that takes a lot of reading time where normally I would DNF something. You don't DNF for the BookTube Prize. And I don't think you should DNF for when you're judging something. So yeah, I've decided not to do that next year, even though I still really want to. I just don't feel like I have the time, and I want to manage my time a lot better in 2025. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself because I am going to do an entire video about goals for 2025. I haven't really hammered them down yet, so I will be thinking about that in the coming days and posting a goals video a few days from now, hopefully. So yeah, those are my general thoughts about how things went this past year. Not enough time, haven't been engaging with BookTube the way I would like to, and reading a lot of mid books instead of a lot of great books. Last thing I wanted to do for this reflections video is to go over my goals and how I did. So I kept it really chill the past couple of years, and I still didn't get through these goals, even though I kept it really minimal. I made 3 reading-related goals and 2 channel-related goals. Well, actually, I should say I did really well for the reading, I think, for the reading-related goals. Channel-related goals, not so much. So my first goal, we'll start with the reading-related goals. My first goal was to reduce my unread books, like my physical TBR, down to 75. And I started the year, I didn't write this down, I think with either 101 books or 100 books, something like that. And I wanted to get them down to 75. And I did that. I actually got them down to 73 unread books. I feel really good about this. I'm going to create another goal for this year. I don't know what that goal will be. I don't want to go crazy because I do want to leave some room for reading like new releases or newer releases or things that I just don't own. So, and if I have another reading year where I'm only reading like 40 something books, I don't necessarily want them all to be from my shelves. I want to leave room for other things. So I'm still thinking about what I think the goal should be for this year, but I'm very happy that I got it down to 73. My second reading goal was to continue reading series. When I made this goal, I was in the middle of 12 series, and there was like 2 sub goals to this. The first was to continue on in at least 4 series, and the second was to finish at least 2 series. I almost made this goal. I got so close. So for continuing on in at least 4 series, I only continued on in 3 series. I continued on in the Dirk Gently series, in the Hunger Games series and in the Farseer series trilogy. I did meet the goal of finishing at least 2 series. I finished the Hunger Games series and I finished the Dirk Gently series, which is only a duology, but it counts, okay? So I think I did really well. I just missed getting this by a hair. There are several series where I am only 1 book away from finishing the series. So I might revisit this goal for 2025. We'll see. But I feel good about that goal. The next goal I also didn't quite meet, but am also very close to meeting, and that was that I wanted to read all of the books my husband has gifted me over the years. So he had given me over the past like couple years 4 books for like Christmas and birthday and whatnot, and I hadn't read any of them at that time. Or no, I had only read 1 out of the 4, so I had 3 books I hadn't read, and I thought, well, I can read these 3 books this year, and I've read 2. And I am in the middle, like probably a third of the way through the 3rd one. So I'm finishing that one up in January, but then I will have finished all the books he's gifted me and they won't be sitting on my shelf anymore. And actually, one of the books I read this year was one that he had gifted me a year or 2 ago. And it ended up being my #1, spoiler alert, #1 fiction read of 2024. So there you go. So I do feel good about that goal. The last 2 goals are related to my channel, and this is where things kind of fall apart. So, like I mentioned, I haven't had a ton of time for reading in comparison to other years, but I'm still reading like a lot. But I really haven't had the time to devote to my channel like I would like. And that's something I want to spend more time on in 2025 because I really enjoy it. The first of my channel related goals was to make 2 more videos in my pop culture osmosis series. I love making this series. I choose classic books, like books that are really famous that I think I kind of know what happens in them because just pop culture osmosis. And I try to predict what will happen in the books and I vlog it. And it's really, really fun. I love making those vlogs, but they're more work to do, and so I was just finding the time to do them. I already had the books picked out. I knew what I was going to read for those 2 books. Didn't happen. I like opened the page of one and I made the predictions and I was going to vlog it. It just didn't happen. It has, at this point, it has been like, I think 2 years since I've made a pop culture osmosis video, and I miss making them and I want to make more, but yeah, I just finding the time to do them, to vlog and to edit is like a barrier to doing them. And the second channel goal was to do the closed captioning because the auto captions on YouTube aren't the greatest. So I always go in and I edit the existing captions so that they're accurate. And I'm a few behind. I try to do them like a day or 2 after I post them. And the last 3 or 4 videos I made, I didn't do them. I will do them. I had been keeping up with it all year, so I will do those last few. But my goal for 2025 was to actually go back and caption, obviously not all my videos. No one cares to watch a wrap up from like 3 years ago. But what I call like evergreen content, so like single book reviews, things that will continue to garner views. I wanted to close caption those or like edit the captions so that people finding them like, 3 months from now will have captions that actually are accurate and make sense. And it's important to me that I make my channel as accessible as like is humanly possible for me to do. And while it's time consuming, it's just important to me to do that. Like I said, I am going to kind of reflect a little bit on what I want to be doing with my channel and my reading next year, and I will be back in a few days with my goals for 2025. In the meantime, I will put up my top books of the year very soon as I can get it edited. And that's all for now. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for sticking with me this year if you've stuck around, and we'll chat soon. Take care. Bye.